Alright, today we are going to be doing graphing sine functions with transformations. Okay, so my function today will be 2 sine x minus pi, right, plus 2. So that's what we are going to start with. Alright, so when starting to mentally think, what am I saying now? When you are starting to graph functions that are associated with sine and cosine or tangent, the trig functions, there are some things that you want to, note before you start graphing anything. So I will write them down and we will figure them out slowly. So the amplitude. The mid line, and they're really easy to figure out, and I'll show you how. The period, the phase shift, the max, and the min. That's all. Alright? So, the amplitude is always the value in front, right here. So if there was nothing here, if it was just sine x minus pi plus 2, then it'd be just, the amplitude would be 1. It wouldn't be 0, it'd be 1. In this case, we have the amplitude at 2. Whatever number, whether it's 1/2, 20, 50, 0.2, whatever, that's the amplitude, okay? So in this case, the amplitude is 2. The midline is the same thing. You can also call it the vertical displacement. It's, you know how in a regular graph, you know that this last value, Q, or whatever you want to call it, we call it Q, is your up and down movement, right? The vertical displacement, a vertical shift, or whatever. The midline is also, this is also the midline. This is also the new x-axis where you are going to start your graph, and you will see that when we actually start to graph it. So for now, just remember this is this plus the last number is your midline or vertical displacement. If there was nothing here, it'd be a 0, but in this case it's also 2. Alright, the period is 360 divided by this value. Well, we have nothing here, right? In front of the x. There'd be a number in front of the x, or it's factored out, whatever. But there would be something in front. And if there's nothing in front, then that means our period is simply 360. Okay? The phase shift. Now this is the one that gets people a little bit, it's a little bit tricky when you graph it, not when you actually need to find it. It's really right in front of us. The phase shift is the plus or minus something in the brackets, okay? So here it's minus pi. But remember, we're not really subtracting pi because it's the opposite, right? So we are adding pi. We are going to the right pi units. So to the right pi units. Or you can think about we're adding pi. Alright? The max and min are pretty easy. Now the max and min, this is what we are really, how do you picture this, So the midline, we know the midline is 2, right? We are now looking for the max and the min. So this and this. But how do you find that? Well, this is 2, right? So what do you add to 2? It's 2 plus something and 2 minus something, right? But what is this x or whatever, right? It's the amplitude. Okay, the amplitude is the distance between your midline to your max or to your min. So 2 plus 2 will give you your amplitude of, to give you your maximum of 4. So the maximum is 4. 2 minus 2, right, will give you your minimum of 0. Okay? So great, we found all the information. With this information, we can easily graph. Easily. You just have to put it all in one plot. Okay. So now let me just make some axes. No. Let me actually start with the period. I want you to understand something. Actually, it's okay. I'll do this. So, guys, we know our maximum is what? We know our maximum is 4 and the minimum is 0. So let's do it. 4 and this, let's say, is 0. Okay? Now our midline is 2. So our midline is 2. Midline is 2. Okay? 2. You know how you would normally start at 0, or you would graph your normal sine or cosine graph at 0. But now you're just going to start at your midline, so it's going to look like that. Okay? But remember, so the next thing we have is our period. If we divide, because we always need 5 points when graphing sine and cosine. A normal 360-degree period is 0, 360, or you want to call it 2 pi. And we have 5 points. 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. 1, 2, 3. I am 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's unproportional. I know. Whatever. So okay, we have 0, and the last value is 2 pi. Well, what do we have in between? Well, we know from our unit circle that it's pi over 2. It's pi, right? Remember this? I did something wrong. Oops, I did 6 points. I'm sorry. See, I'm being silly. Alright, so we got pi over 2. We got pi. This is 90 degrees. 180 divided by 2 is 90. This is 180. This is 3 pi over 2, which gives us 270. And lastly, 2 pi. This is our regular, because our period is 360, right? So I just divided this 360 or 2 pi into 4 different points. 5. But now we got to phase shift. So we got to do something to these values. Well, what do we have to do? Well, we have to add pi. So to each of these values, we simply add pi. That's all. Alright, so 0 plus pi, well, that's pi. Right? Pi over 2 plus pi, we can do that mentally, it's 3 pi over 2. Okay, so these are our new values. What's pi plus pi? Well, it's 2 pi. What's 3 pi plus pi? Wait, yeah, 3 pi plus pi. That's 5 pi over 2. That's all you're doing. And what's 2 pi plus pi? That's 3 pi. Alright? There, you got your new 5 points. They're transformed. They're moved to the right. So now let's just record them. You know, I'm going to start at... do I need to know? No. So we have pi. We got 3 pi over 2. We've got 2 pi. Right? That's all you do. You draw your regular period. And then add pi, add whatever, or subtract whatever your phase shift is. And then you get your new values. So 2 pi, then 5 pi over 2, and 3 pi. I'm going to erase, whatever. Just delete this because I need the space. Okay? So, now we got our new values. So we took care of a couple of things. We took care of our max, our min. We don't need to record the amplitude, because the amplitude, I told you, is the distance between this and your max, and your midline and your max, and your midline and your minimum. So 4 minus 2, that's 2. 2 minus 0, that's 2. So 2 is our amplitude. So we really took care of this, you can think of. We took care of the midline, we took care of the period, and we took care of our phase shift, right? We added pi, and then we put all the values on the graph. So it looks like we took care of everything. Now comes the part where it all is, up to you. By the way, we are not starting from here now. We are starting from here. Because remember, we moved up to the right pi unit. So we start at pi. Okay? So this, I'm going to start from here. Okay. We're going to start from here. Alright? So, what kind of graph are we doing? Well, we're doing a sine graph. If you recall, a sine graph looks something like this. It goes up, down, like that, right? So we have 3 zeros. This is our max, this is our min. So that's what we're going to do. That's all. Because we have 5 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we just have to make the shape at the right values. So we begin at going to our max at this point. Okay, so we went to our max at 4. Our maximum is at 4 here. And now we go down and touch the next value to get our 0. Whoop-de-doo. Right, there you go. I just want you to understand. And then what do? Then from here, we go down to our minimum at 0. God, that's a terrible graph. And then we come back to our 0, the last point, which is 3 pi. Okay, so our graph, I really don't like this, I'm sorry, I have to change it. You know what, imagine this is 0. Okay, imagine this is 0. So it could match up to this. Okay, so our graph looks something like this, and you can continue, right, go on and on. Wow, what am I? And it would go on like that. But you got your first period. This is our first, first cycle, or period, or whatever. And once you got your first cycle, you can continue doing the same for the next cycles, because it's going to follow the pattern, right? That's what periodic functions are all about. You got your period, your first period, you can continue your next cycles or periods by looking at your first one, yeah, so I think that made sense. You don't have to do all of this to graph. You can just mentally think, oh, well, I can get my maximum at just taking this value and adding the amplitude and subtracting the amplitude. And by doing that, I get my max and min. I already know my midline, it's 2. I know my amplitude, it's also 2. You just have to do 360 divided by this value in front, but there's nothing here, so that means 360 is the period. If there was a 2, you just do 360 divided by 2, which is 180. And this is just the the phase shift, okay? This, I always do this. I draw my period, the transform period. Here it just stays the same. Divide it into 5 points, and then do arithmetic. So add pi, add whatever, subtract pi, subtract this, subtract that, and just record it on my graph, and just graph it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much, and I will see you in the next segment. Thanks.